Before we begin, thank you very much to Gojira Super for joining the Patreon campaign. Very appreciated. Thank you very much for the support. Always appreciated. Okay, so heads up. Number one, thank you very much. I should go on vacation more often because you guys came through smashingly. I have plenty of shout outs to get through the hiatus. Well, not hiatus, but my time away. But thank you very much. Thank you very much for the support. Get used to seeing me in this shirt because I'm filming a lot today. So, let us begin. So today I thought we'd try something a little bit new because I do have a Patreon request that's going to relate to this, but we want to try it out a little bit first, feel out the waters. Might even do it for like Sunday's video for all I know. But for now, we are going to be taking a look at the evolution of Bumblebee's visual design because obviously, you know, someone who is technically the main character of Transformers these days has gone through a ton of different design iterations over the years. Now, to be fair, we are not going to be looking at literally every single version of Bumblebee out there. Between comic books and toys, there's so many little variations of Bumblebee that it would just get very redundant and get very dull very quickly. And I don't even know how fun this is going to be to begin with. But point being, we're going to focus on the major Bumblebee designs. We're going to be focusing on the ones mostly from the cartoons, few video game, few comic book. We'll end it off on a couple random ones that stand out as well. But we're going to start where we have to start, which is the classic, the OG boxy Bumblebee. Now this is where the cartoon was being very friendly with the aesthetics of these characters. Obviously, this Bumblebee is not nearly as rotund as his original toy would make him out to be. So he's got a much more pleasing aesthetic, much more, like standard Autobot, what you would expect. And yeah, it works. It works. He's kept simple. He's really only got 3 colors going on, between the white or light blue, depending on the coloring at the time, and then the black and the yellow. You can actually see why this turned out to be the kid appeal character. Even if they wanted Hound to be like the human connection character, it was going to end up being Bumblebee just because the design is cute. Like, it is very like appealing, to a kid's sensitivities. But also being yellow, it is a very neutral color for kids. You'll find a lot of kid appeal things do end up being yellow because it's not something that boys or girls steer away from because it's not really seen as a masculine or feminine color. I don't think you saw this color as feminine until the Power Rangers came around. So it makes sense, and then you have the fact that like he has a very round aesthetic. He does have these boxy arms and things like that, but the big round feet and body, and then the head, obviously. So he's got you've got like the little keystone pieces of what you need for like a kid appeal character. Especially back in the 80s with that design aesthetic. It's a really solid design. Like, really solid. It's not overcomplicated, maybe a little simple, but then again, this is, 1984. I'm not expecting super complexity. The next design we have to look forward to is his very first remodeling, which is actually Goldbug. Basically an attempt to, like, grow up Bumblebee a little bit into a Throttlebot design. And admittedly, it's not as good. And I don't even mean that from like a design standpoint, but it really does miss a lot of Bumblebee's original notes. Like, it's a solid gold design. There's nothing breaking up his coloration whatsoever. I know that's accurate to the original toy, but if the toy did it, it's still kind of their fault. They could have chosen to design it and deco it a different way. Nothing was stopping them from doing that. But the design itself, it's just there's way too many hard edges. It's basically like if you took the original Bumblebee design and took all the curve out of it and just made it sharp lines, which is not really hitting the Bumblebee aesthetic. Maybe that's the point because he's Goldbug now. But really, like, it just seems like it's weird because it doesn't feel like a big departure because all the same things are still in the same spots, like even his, like, Volkswagen shoes. But it just feels off, doesn't it? It just does not feel right. You know, like sharp, boxy Bumblebee does not really hit the note that it should. So it's an iffy one for me. It's an iffy one for me. And from here, we have to put Bumblebee away. Because outside of a few toys that got name dumped into being Bumblebee, he really didn't have any showing all the way until 2007. With a name like Bumblebee, you wouldn't think he would miss the Beast Wars, but he did. And guess what? It took till 2007 for us to get Bumblebee again. At least, you know, aside from like Classics toys and all that. And that's still basically G1B. But yeah, we move on to the live action Bumblebee. And honestly, like, the design was cool at first, but even when the design was fresh and like, ooh, this is new, this is a different aesthetic, there's always something off about it. It's just like that Bayverse design of making as many moving parts as possible on the model, leading to him looking like a gray skeleton wearing yellow shrapnel. And I've never really gone for that aesthetic. You know, even if I liked the original Bay movie when it came out, I still didn't really like the robot designs because they just felt like a bunch of gray metal mashing into each other, and it was hard to tell who was who a lot of times, even if you knew who the characters were. This, you know, it's a pretty drastic departure. It's an attempt to modernize Bumblebee into an action hero design, lots of sharp corners, and then like more traditional aesthetics, you know, door wings, the front of the car becoming the chest. So it's essentially like, admittedly, Bumblebee in name only. Like, aside from just the roundish head, there really isn't anything, you know, in the yellow design, obviously, but really beyond that, there really isn't anything that, you know, harkens back to Bumblebee, which is what a lot of Bayverse designs do. You know, in that sense, compared to other Bay designs, I guess we're lucky Bumblebee was yellow. But no, aesthetically, this one never did to me. I know this is a lot of people's go-to Bumblebee because they grew up with the movies, and that's how they got into Transformers, but for me, like, this has never really felt right for Bumblebee. Now, in 2008, we tried to backtrack that, thanks to Derek Wyatt. No, 2007, I think, actually. 2007, 2008, around there. Yeah, we tried animated Bumblebee. And this is an attempt to modernize the original Bumblebee design. You're back to having a lot more rounded spots. You're back to having his traditional head with its horns. It's obviously in the animated style. You can see a little bit of influence coming here with like the fenders ending up on the shoulders. So you're getting a little bit more of the car visible in this mode to bulk him up a little bit. But for the most part, he does stick to a much more traditional layout. Now, he is far more action hero. He does not have any kind of paunch to him. He is just kind of a sleek, young Autobot. And it's a good design. It's a very nice design. Again, very simple in the coloration, so no mistaking who it is. It's just all around. It's just like an overall nice little take on Bumblebee. If you like the Derek Wyatt art style, I will admit it's not for everybody, the big chins and all that, but you know what? I definitely think it stands out. I really like this Bumblebee design. Yeah, and don't worry, this isn't just me poo-pooing on live action Bumblebee. We'll get back to that, don't worry. We do move on to 2010, where we go to Transformers Prime, and this is what I felt like the live-action Transformers should have been. So obviously, it is attempting to take the live-action Bumblebee design and smoothing it out to a point where, yeah, it's back to being round, and it's back to looking a lot more solid. He does have a lot of broken up parts, but they are consistent with each other. You know, like the chest obviously is broken up into many pieces, but it's all bright yellow and it's all folded in on itself, so it makes a solid mass. You know, it doesn't look like shrapnel piled up on top of each other. It's a really cool design. You know, you get the roundness that you expect out of Bumblebee. You still get the movie aesthetics and the more traditional heroic Autobot design aesthetic. It all works. It's a nice balance of everything. So this one really worked for me. And again, I still stand by, like, this is how the live action bots should have looked. Like, this is a nice medium between modern design and the classic solid aesthetics. So this one always worked for me. Meanwhile, Rescue Bots got their own take on Bumblebee. Now, oddly enough, the Rescue Bot design of Bumblebee would eventually go on to be the evergreen style of Bumblebee, which we'll look at here in a bit as well. And this one takes the movie aesthetic again, but it also works some of the animated aesthetic in. You see the black stripes that go down the legs. You see the tires that end up in the shoulders. There's a balance here again of trying to integrate a lot of previous Bumblebees. And I think incorporating animated aesthetic into this works because it is supposed to be a kid-friendly Bumblebee. And let's be honest, the live-action one is maybe a little too complicated or a little too mean-looking in some situations to really hit it off with a younger kid. And I mean, like, we're talking like 4 and 5, by the way. Not the kids who went to the Bay movies. Not that you should have taken kids to those. Oh my God, a little bit inappropriate. Point being, it's another amalgamation Bumblebee, but it's pulling from live action and it's really pulling from the Prime design and animated at the same time. And I think it works. I think it works out really well. And then we had another Bumblebee from this whole aligned mess of a continuity, but this one was from Cybertron, so he gets to look a lot different. We're going back to G1 aesthetics again. He's got the traditional horn helmet. He's a much more round design, far more round than I'd say even the G1 Bumblebee is. Moving the wheels to the forearms and making them that sleek to the body. He's got a lot of very flat and round aesthetics going on at the same time here. The chest bulging out like that's much more akin to the original toy, but it is the front end of his car mode, so it is again trying to keep the modern aesthetic in there a little bit. It's also top heavy. This is like the most top heavy Bumblebee's ever been because of his fender arms. He kind of has like a Popeye aesthetic where he's got these big forearms, or Mega Man aesthetic with these big forearms and much thinner lower body, which is actually not typical of a Bumblebee. You'll notice with a lot of these designs, Bumblebee is very bottom heavy. He's usually had these very large, thick legs, or at the very least, very big feet. This one defied that and went up a bit. It does strike true as more like a fighter take on Bumblebee, where he's actually, he looks far more like a heavy combatant who's been through war. I like it. I really do like it. Actually, I like it enough that I'm upset that every single toy that's come out of this design has not been great. This is one of the rare times where I'll actually go for like, hey, third party, could you please work on something for me? I would like to own it. Alright, so that's the video game Bumblebee. We had to move back to the live action because in Age of Extinction, Bumblebee got a makeover. He's got a lot more black in his design. Somehow the design has even more sharp points and more sharp details to it. And I really do not like this Bumblebee. I think this is try-hard Bumblebee. This is going way too hard with the sharp aesthetic and the shrapnel look. When at a time when we're kind of like, pull it back, Bay went, no. More spike, more sharp, more blades, more edges. And then we'll throw black in as well, just because, we have to break up the yellow even more than it's already been broken up. Yeah, I felt like this one was just trying way too hard. Way too hard to make Bumblebee edgy, figuratively and literally, and it just doesn't mesh. Was not a fan of this one at all. But hey, it didn't last long. Next movie went right back to the old Bumblebee. Meanwhile, we got the sequel to Prime, where we were introduced to Robots in Disguise 2015 Bumblebee, and I really don't like this one either. Number one, you've completely redone the head. Without the familiar aesthetics, the head really doesn't strike Bumblebee to me. He doesn't look like movie or G1 Bumblebee anymore. He just kind of looks like a guy with a yellow helmet. On addition to the barrel chest, I don't like. They tried to make him more Optimus-like in his design because he was the leader of the Autobots in this series. So they made him more barrel-chested. They made him like have like a bigger, more heroic stance. It just doesn't suit the character. And it just doesn't look right for Bumblebee. And I'm not a fan of when Transformer designs hide the vehicle mode so much I can't tell what they turn into anymore. I like to see a robot that obviously turns into a car or a jet. I like to see those components, and this design did whatever it could to try and remove those parts as much as possible, and I'm not really big on that. So yeah, this is ranking like one of my least, right there with Age of Extinction. Ranking up with like my least favorite Bumblebee designs, just because like if that one was try hard, this one feels like, well, obviously they tried, so I can't say it's opposite, but I feel like they tried too hard in the wrong direction. Instead of trying to just make it like a grown-up Bumblebee, they basically created a whole new character. If this character was blue, if this character was purple, I don't think you would ever have known that this was supposed to be Bumblebee. So that hurts it a lot. Now, we did get better in Cyberverse, but that's because we are back to using this evergreen design. This is really where the evergreen design got pushed really hard. And again, we have an amalgamated Bumblebee that kind of mixes the G1 and movie aesthetic, and it actually does it in a pretty nice way. He's not too sharp. He's still got some roundness to him. Some familiar features are there. He's got the big feet. And he does have the door wings that we're used to at this point. But he does still have his windshield on his torso. So again, we're kind of holding back a little bit and putting G1 Bumblebee back in there. You know, of course, the head design is back as well. I didn't like it at first, but I will admit the design has definitely grown on me, especially as we've seen other takes on it, because now, and we will see this here in a minute, the design from Evergreen is now kind of stretched out and gone beyond. Now, instead of trying to do new takes on movie Bumblebee or G1 Bumblebee, we're doing new takes on the Evergreen Bumblebee, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because it's already a good design. It's already a solid design from the get-go. But we can do better, and they have been doing better. Back to the live action, though. Bumblebee got another aesthetic change for his movie, and this is kind of what it needed all along. I mean, he's back to being a Volkswagen, which is cool, but he's round. He is round. He's kind of cute again. Like, the eyes are bigger. Like, the face is not as overcomplicated and scary looking. And just like he strikes true. Like, he actually feels a lot more like Bumblebee than the other live action ones. I really, really like him. And he's solid. That was the thing that got me so much about the Bumblebee movie design. He's solid. He actually looks like a fully formed robot. No shrapnel hanging off. No sharp edges for no reason. He is just a nice, solid, round robot, and that's pretty much what Bumblebee's wheelhouse should be. Yeah, this is ranks up there with one of my favorite Bumblebee designs, just because it does the deed so freaking well. And again, it just kind of makes me go, why didn't they do that from the start? Why was this not the 07 Bumblebee design? Why did we have to make him a big pile of scrap metal? I don't know. Like, it took them a while to figure it out, but man, like, I really love the Bumblebee aesthetic here. Really upset that Rise of the Beast went back to the Bayverse Bumblebee. I really would have preferred them sticking closer to this. Is what it is, though. We're not judging that Bumblebee. It's because it's basically live action Bumblebee again. I did mention adapting the Evergreen design, though, and that is what Earthspark did. Once again, it's Bumblebee. He's got all the same familiar details from the Evergreen design. It's all in the exact same spot. We have obviously changed up the vehicle, and I like that I can tell that he's a different vehicle mode just from the way he looks as a robot. You know, obviously you can see that in the fenders in the front end on his shoulders, as well as like on his chest. For the windshield, but still, he has a very sharp look to him, which works here. It actually does work here, and there is a lot of still familiar elements. He's got the big feet, he's got the door wings, which are now just kind of a must, which I guess when your name's Bumblebee, you should have wings of some sort. And yeah, like, it is mostly the Evergreen design, but I do like the redesign. I do like how it works, and it animates really well too. So I'm a fan of this one as well. before we wrap up, there are two quick ones that we want to go through. In the IDW verse, they mostly stuck to toy designs. They tried to keep on pace with Hasbro as far as like what Bumblebee toys were current. So his design changed frequently. But, you know, and then it changed into things that kind of look like the Evergreen design. And then it changed into things that look like the War for Cybertron design. But the one that stood out for me was this one, where they did try to do a different take on the G1 design. You do see some of the Evergreen elements with the fenders on the shoulders, but at this point that would be far closer to being pulled from animated Bumblebee than the Evergreen. Still, it's interesting to see Bumblebee with the front end of the Volkswagen as the chest rather than the top of the vehicle. It does create a problem. The front end, the hood of the car, is now visible twice in his robot mode because it's supposed to be his feet too. But still, it's actually like, I'm actually surprised. I don't hate it. That was the thing. That's why I included it, because it's kind of a weird design and art choice. But I don't hate it. I really don't hate it. And then there's another one that I took to immediately. We're going to wrap it up with this. The Hearts of Steel design. It's a minor Bumblebee design, but I thought it was incredibly clever to actually make a very recognizable Bumblebee out of like a cute little steam engine. I do like old school steam engine aesthetics. I'm not like a train enthusiast or anything, but I like how a locomotive looks. And I really do like the cleverness that goes behind actually turning a locomotive into like a full recognizable Bumblebee. It got retconned into a new character, but it was supposed to be Bumblebee at the time. So I will give it credit and include it in this list because I do think it's a really neat take on Bumblebee. And that's where we're going to end it off. Like I said, there's a ton of other Bumblebees out there, lots of little variations, and I'm sure I missed some major design, but you can just see like how the design has rolled along over the years, how we went from this boxy little G1 robot to EarthSpark's design today. It's been an interesting ride, and because he's been so heavily featured in comics and movies, it's one that is constantly going up and down. But I'm sure we'll see plenty of other takes as the years go on. But that's it for me. Thank you very much for watching. I hope everyone enjoyed, and as always, I will see you next time.
We parlay with the captain.
You would think a werecroc is going to listen to elvish rules of piracy.
Of course it would be the freaking elves that invented parlay.
I had to think of a quick replacement for the French.
Oh.